Hello and welcome to Talking Reds, a Nottingham Forest podcast hosted by myself, Greg Oram, and my fellow Forest fan from across the Atlantic, Richard Spray.
Complaining why you living in America if all you do is hate it. You think it's brave to take a stand against the nation. Real bravery is dying for the right so you can say it. Dear America, what happened to Americans? Apparently no one's aware or cares that it's embarrassing. It's arrogance. Our greatest enemy was always slavery and terrorists. And now it's people in the country trying to burn the heritage. I can't help it. I just seem to see the...
There you go, Richard. How you doing, buddy? You okay?
No, I'm good, man. You got me moving and shaking in the morning. It's good.
Well, that's what we do. That's what we do. Nottingham Forest travelled to the capital at the weekend and came away with a hard-earned point to extend their unbeaten record on the road to 6 matches. That's including the 2 at the end of last season, of course. We'll discuss the chances at both ends, the world-class saves, the goals and the red card. Plus, worryingly for Forest, Morgan Gibbs-White was forced off with what looked like an ankle injury. And with the news that he is now pulled out of the England squad, could Forest be without their talisman for a run of matches? And if that's the case, how would they cope? So, to review all of that, Richard and I welcome to the channel regular contributor Raf the Random Pundit, and also returning to Talking Reds, it's Jamie Martin. Good morning, gents. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Thanks so much.
Good, Jamie. Good
Great, yeah, I'm loving that as well. That little soundbite you got there, yeah, that's got me excited now.
Well, listen, mate, we are going to go through some more sounds, I'm sure, along the way. So those of you just joining us, welcome to the channel. The time is just gone 11:30 on Tuesday, the 8th of October. So we're just 2 days since Forest earned that draw at Chelsea. Thank you if you are joining us live on YouTube. Please do play along in the comments and let us know your thoughts and views throughout. And for any of you who are listening later or watching this on playback, welcome to Talking Reds. Please do hit like and subscribe. Please do give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify and all that kind of jazz. It really helps us along. Today's intro music for Richard was, of course, Tom McDonald with his hit America. If you're new to the channel, let me explain that I always introduce Richard with a different piece of music every episode in the theme, of course, something to do with America. Okay, also, I have started to introduce a quiz question at the start of every episode. Today's quiz question: which player is the youngest to have played a senior game for Nottingham Forest? Fairly straightforward. A lot of people will know this, I'm sure. You can pop it into the comments. You can play along at home. You can shout out loud. But which player is the youngest to have played a senior game for Nottingham Forest? Okay. I also want to put a shout out before we get going. Young William Hewson, a Forest fan who is at home recovering after knee surgery last week. William is Anne Hewson's son, a regular watcher and supporter of Talking Reds. So, young William, we're sending you all lots of our love and best wishes. We hope that knee is back together for you very soon. A great draw for us at the weekend. Hopefully that cheered you up a little bit, and hopefully you'll be back playing football with your mates as soon as. So, all the best to you, William. Okay, all right. So, straight into it with Morgan Gibbs-White. Okay, I said in the opening that there was a concern about him, but the news broke in the last half hour that the Athletic reporting that Forest are hopeful that Gibbs-White will be fit to face Crystal Palace after the international break. They're saying that there were fears that the midfielder could face a longer spell on the sidelines after he suffered an ankle injury against Chelsea. They feared it could be serious, but scans have revealed it was just a sprain. And it's not that significant in terms of ligament damage. So that has to be good news for Forest, doesn't it, Raf?
Yeah, I mean, it is wonderful. And actually, there are a few whispers before the Chelsea game, of those that shall remain nameless, going, well, actually, it might be better if Gibbs-White didn't go on the England into the England squad, because probably he's not going to get a game with everyone coming back anyway. And also, it would be good for him to have a rest. This is not the ideal way, but actually, I think we really get to a good resolution. But it also sharpens our minds to the reality of that he's not indestructible, and we do need a solid plan B.
And well, last time out when he was suspended against Fulham at home, Jamie, Nuno went with that 4-4-2 formation that threw everybody off track. So it looks like, fingers crossed, Morgan will be back for Palace. So we perhaps won't need to see Nuno shuffling his pack again. But, at some point along the line, we may have to do without Morgan again. Just briefly touching on him missing from the team. Are you a Jota Silva man for the number 10 role, or an Elliot Anderson man, or another?
I prefer. I don't know. I prefer seeing Jota Silva in more of a wing role. Personally, I know that maybe not everyone feels the same, but I do like it when Jota Silva plays on the wing, or maybe cuts inside to play as the forward man when Chris Wood gets a break. And I'd like to see Chris Wood get a break at some point. If we can afford to give him one, because again, he's not indestructible either. But for the number 10, I'd like to see maybe Elliot Anderson get a bit more of a chance in there. He's not quite as fast as Gibbs-White, I don't think, but I like his physical. I like his stature. I think that he holds the ball really well and he can thread through some really good passes. But Raf's absolutely right. It does expose the fact that we do need a plan B. And at the moment, I don't know if we 100% know what that plan B is.
Indeed. Okay. Well, look, if we go the whole season and he's not missing, then of course we're going to be happy. We'll cross that bridge perhaps when we come to it. But let's concentrate now on the game at the weekend, Richard. So we talked about team selection. It's the one thing that is a real conversation point more than ever, it seems, because it feels like with the options we've got in the squad and the tactics that Nuno employs away from home as opposed to at home, that he's always going to perhaps try and do something different. And so we were talking beforehand about what kind of team he's going to go out with. So he went with kind of a 4-2-3-1 with Anderson playing more on the left, which then became maybe like a 4-3-3 when we're in and out of possessions, things like that. So your thoughts on the team selection going into that one when Nuno revealed his team?
Yeah, not totally shocked maybe that Elanga got left on the bench. That's become a little bit more commonplace recently. Some of that's just based off of obviously who we're playing against. But I think putting Anderson on the left clearly seemed to be about how do we slow down what's happening with Cole Palmer? Does he influence that aspect of the game? And it seemed like that was the case. It was kind of like, depending on where Cole had drifted to, you might see Ward-Prowse jump in and actually try to defend him, which I was a little bit concerned about that being the way that we were operating, because that doesn't seem like that fits his profile. But then you've got Anderson kind of there too to kind of help restrict his movements a little bit and a lot of his creativity, which is, I mean, clearly it seemed like it worked. So it was a little strange to see Callum Hudson-Odoi shifted over to the right, because as we know, that's generally not where he's going to be successful because of the way that he operates in terms of his cutting ability into the middle of that sort of penalty area, or just outside the box to try to get that shot off. But and he seems to have pretty good synergy now with Moreno as well on that side. So it was a little bit odd. It seemed like he was his touch was a little heavy throughout the match, so he didn't really play that spectacularly in the first half. Seemed to get a little bit more life, a little bit more energy in the second half, but again got subbed off sort of later in the match. So yeah, I wasn't totally shocked by the selection because I think that's where we had to go, and I like the fact that Anderson was kind of there to help. As I said, constrict the way that Cole Palmer was going to operate within that right side of the pitch to the middle of the pitch. So completely happy with what he did and glad he went back to the 4-2-3-1. I thought that was much more successful than what we saw in the previous match.
So thinking about our first half, Jamie, I mean, we've gone to Stamford Bridge. Our away form has been good. Obviously, the away win at Liverpool. I said before the game, look, I would take a point all day long. Would take a point, but Forest on the road now are a very different proposition to what they were certainly last season and definitely in season one, obviously. So the setup from Nuno was there to not only try and grab a point, but also compete and go on the attack as well. What did you notice in that first half? I mean, I thought solid in defence, the one-on-one defending with Aina in particular, who is just fast becoming one of the best fullbacks in the Premier League by far. You know, there's lots of good things going on. Madueke coming in on his left was a bit of a danger. He was, you know, asking the question. He's quite a greedy player, in my opinion. And I said at the time, that's good for us because he's always going to want to shoot. Of course, we know what happened later. But, you know, also JWP picking up that first yellow. So kind of sum up your thoughts across that first half with what you saw from Forest and Chelsea.
I mean, first of all, I think we all kind of knew what Forest were going to do in that game. We knew the way they were going to play. And I wasn't mad at that because Chelsea are coming off Cole Palmer getting 4 goals in a game in the last Premier League, game against Brighton, 4 in the first half. And I think a lot of Forest fans were thinking this is going to be, well, maybe a few, I don't know. But I was certainly thinking we'd be lucky to get something out of today. And I'd definitely take a point. And at certain times in the game, I actually thought we could possibly get all 3, you know, and it wasn't just after the first goal, or it was actually after they'd equalised. And I thought, you know, towards the end of the game, but obviously heroics, but we'll go into that later. But, you know, I thought we set up really well. Chelsea, they've got those dangers because they will attack with almost 4 because Enzo Fernandez will push up higher. And then you've got Sancho, Fernandez, Nicholas Jackson and Madueke all pressing. And I think one thing that Forest they had to grow into it a bit, but one thing they eventually started to do really well was playing out from the back and getting forward despite that quite high press. And then they had a lot of space in the midfield with the likes of Anderson and Ward-Prowse and Yates to move the ball around. So, other than, the kind of teething stages where you've got to get used to someone like Sancho, who you can say what you want about his time at United, but he's clearly got talent. I think Forest grew into it really well. I think Moreno struggled a bit with Madueke because I do agree with the fact he holds onto the ball quite a lot, Madueke, but you saw it was going to happen. He's going to try and play him inside. Moreno shows him inside and he shoots with his left foot into the bottom corner. So I think Moreno struggled for me, but I think overall, defensively, we were really good. And we looked a lot more assured on the ball, especially at the back. And I've got to say, Nikola Milenkovic is a massive part of that. He just brings such a huge assurance and calmness to the defence that is really important against teams like Chelsea.
Milenkovic has made such an impact, hasn't he, Raf? And at the start of the season, in our pre-season predictions, which we're going to come to later, we asked each of us to come up with who we thought might be the player of the season. And I did say Milenkovic. And I think that come the end of the season, he's not going to be far off, is he? His impact, sum up his impacts, Raf, for Forest, not only in just the Chelsea game, but I'm thinking about set pieces at either end of the pitch. I know that you weren't able to see the game live on Sunday because you had a personal commitment and you've watched it back since and obviously caught up with things. But Milenkovic's impact has been second to none, right?
Yeah, gutted not to be able to be at the game. But yeah, and actually my prediction, I think, was Taiwo for the season. So you're in a much better spot than I am at the moment. But, Milenkovic has come in and, the defensive role is highly tactical. So it's not an easy task just to slot into a defensive unit and be up to speed straight away. It's actually really, really difficult. So the seamless nature of him coming in is superb. It's absolutely amazing. And the fact that we've gone from effectively being the worst at defending set pieces to actually, I think, statistically, we're the best now at actually defending set pieces.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Unbelievable turn of events. And I never thought I'd be saying such words on a podcast at all. But in such a short period of time. And if you look at what the variables are in that defensive unit, you've got to really point at him as to where that step change has come from, potentially with some coaching additions to staff in the background, but they've got to put it into action on the pitch. And he's turned into an amazing, amazing weapon, but also both sides of the pitch, because we'll come on to the goal and how instrumental he was in that. And that's not the first time that has happened this season as well.
Just a few hellos. Good morning to Bruce. Great to have you with us again. And of course, yeah, brilliant having Jamie on. We're pleased about that. Good evening. Or yes, it is good evening because it's Fraser from New Zealand. It's just gone 11:30 at night. So Fraser, down under in New Zealand. Thanks for joining us. Paul Morley is right to say that, look, a sprain will likely still mean that he's going to have very little training, Gibbs-White that is, between now and Palace. So maybe a bench option at best. Yeah, Paul, you could be right with that. So we might still need to think about a starting 11 minus Gibbs-White, even if he's going to be introduced. Steve O's with us as well, and he's right, I think, chaps, when he talks about in the comments Anderson being trusted for his discipline. Anderson's another one that's come into the club, pretty much started every game. He's really slotted in really well. And on Milenkovic, Steve O also adds that his decision making is outstanding. He's right. This decision making is absolutely outstanding, and both ends of the pitch, we are reaping the benefits of that. And we said, Richard, didn't we, in the pre-season, if we can just cut out a percentage, a fraction or something from our set piece conceded chart, then, we're already going to be points better off. And we've not only cut it out by a fraction, we've cut it out by, a huge percentage. So long may that continue. Richard, on the game then still, James Ward-Prowse picks up that first yellow. I mean, Cole Palmer's running away from him. He takes one for the team there, and in fact takes one for the team for the whole game, as we know later on. So talk to us about that, but also let's have a word on Murillo from you, please, Richard. I mean, we saw the good and the bad, didn't we? Sweeping in to pick up that ball and taking that shot, and one of them is going to go in. Everyone's saying it, but one of them will go in. But then also, a couple of slips in possession. So give us your view on the James Ward-Prowse situation with that yellow and Murillo, Richard.
Yeah, I'll start with Murillo. I think it's probably been said by multiple people at this point, but I'm just going to bears repeating. He's the perfect, pairing with Milenkovic, because everything that Milenkovic does well, Murillo doesn't, and vice versa. So I think there's a great synergy, a great sort of cohesion that exists between those two. It allows Murillo to be that modern center back, right, to press and progress up the field as he does. He's going to have those moments, those nervy moments, just because he takes, a bit of a risk in terms of how he manages the ball at his feet. But you can see there are plenty of times where he does it incredibly well, but there are going to be moments where he kind of loses focus and he gets dispossessed, and then he puts us at risk. I think the one play that where Sells had threw the ball out to him and rolled it to him. I don't know. The angle of that was a little odd because you couldn't see what happened from front or sort of an aerial view of it. So it just looked like maybe Murillo wasn't quite expecting it to be rolled out to him. So you can't completely fault him for that. But generally speaking, yes, you're right. You got the two extremes. You got the one guy who's still a young player who's still progressing and developing, and then and makes mental mistakes at times. But then you've got the other version of it, to which looks like a guy that Real Madrid would be clamoring for, right? Because of the way that he operates on the ball. So, and that shot was phenomenal. I mean, even the free kick that he had later, you just knew he's just going to absolutely pelt it and hope for a minimum a goal or a goal kick, or a corner. So he's his physical traits and his ability on the ball in the air too at this point is improved. I know we haven't played enough matches yet, I think, to accumulate aerial duels won at this point. And when you look at it statistically, but just optically, just eye test wise, it looks like he's improved in that area. It doesn't look like he's getting bullied, off the ball or in the air as much as he was, and he's taking better positions, and it seems like he's improved. And I'm sure having a guy to his right that does that extremely well and can probably help him understand how he does that well and can be sort of a coach on the field, because that's one thing I love about Milenkovic. He every time something is going on, he's right there clapping, and he's getting people set up. And he's taking that leadership role in that back line, and he's getting us in a position to where we can be successful to defend those kinds of things. Outside of that, but in terms of James Ward-Prowse, yeah, you could see why Nuno, I wouldn't say he was defensive, but he was a little bit quick to point out, look, had he not done that, Nicholas Jackson's got a one-on-one with Sells. I mean, I think Murillo was somewhat within distance to potentially try to defend it, but with the pace of Nicholas Jackson, I think that could have been potentially a clear goal, and then this match has a completely different outcome and different feel to it. So as much as we hate to see Ward-Prowse's, not see that set piece prowess on the pitch next week, in the end, it probably gave us a point. So you can't fault him for that, which is kind of a savvy veteran move, right? He did an experienced thing to try to avoid the potential bad outcome.
Yeah. Thinking about set piece moves and set piece specialist, Jamie. So in the first half, we saw James Ward-Prowse over the free kick, and that free kick move that didn't come off right. They kind of miscommunicated, and it looked like Milenkovic held his hands up as if to say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't quite in the position." And I think we could all see, okay, they were trying to work on something in that moment. So 4 minutes after half time, they thought, okay, let's give it another go. And that's how we got the goal. Talk us through that, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, Ward-Prowse is looking for Milenkovic to make that run on the corner of the box. He's going to head it in, and someone's going to pick it off. And you can tell that Forest have been putting effort into set pieces. And, it does help when you get possibly the best set piece taker and, a fantastic tall centre-back like Milenkovic to help that. And then you've got someone like Chris Wood to finish it. But even taking away all those variables, you can tell there's a structure to the set piece attacking, offensively. And obviously defending set pieces as well, we've already said, is brilliant. But attacking them now, you've got someone like Milenkovic who's going to make that run. He's going to head it back in for someone to finish it. And we did that when it came to that goal. So it's really refreshing, actually, to see that not only we're not just lamping it into the box and kind of hoping that we're going to score, which I don't think Premier League clubs do. They've all got a plan. But it just wasn't very clear cut. And you're not going to do this exact same routine every single time, but you do it when you have to. And in that game, you leave Milenkovic with that much space. It's poor defending from Chelsea, but you leave him with that much space. In the air, he's going to beat you. And then you've got someone as reliable as Chris Wood, who's always going to put it in the back of the net when given the chance like that. So easy on a plate. So, yeah, I was really, really impressed with it. Of course, it was frustrating when he didn't make the move the other time, but they learned from that. And that's all I can really ask for from Forest. If you do make a mistake like that, learn from it. And of course, there's no better way to learn from it than getting a goal the next time. So, set pieces are massive for Premier League. You look at Arsenal at the moment, the amount of set piece goals they're scoring, just because tactically they've got it set up right to do that. There's no reason Forest can't do similar. And let's be realistic. We're still a team that's going to be trying to stay up and then advance, slowly as if we can. And scoring set piece goals is a really, really big part of that, especially away from home. So, I'm impressed. If we can keep doing bits like that, then who knows how many more goals we can score this season.
Positives really in the second half, Raf, with the goal and Forest going in front first again. Forest seem to be scoring goals or scoring the first goal in their matches in all matches at the moment. The only one obviously we didn't was the Fulham defeat. But yet again, we're still being clawed back. And obviously at a place like Chelsea, then, they're going to come at you. Cole Palmer coming into the game more and more in that second half. And then Chelsea get the goal, I think it was within 10 minutes of us going 1-0 up. Could we have done more with that? Could Moreno Raf have done more to show Madueke outside? Like James said before, he was always wanting to come in on that left foot and get a shot off, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think we need perspective here, if it's me. Like, you've got an absolutely rampantly scoring Chelsea that we're going to them at home. And, the fears that we could get pumped for 3 or 4 easily going there. And Madueke last season was the second best player in Chelsea's squad, only to Cole Palmer. And if we have a look at, do we really blame defenders when Elanga turns them inside out when we've got good Elanga playing to his massive strength? And you go, well, no, just Elanga's too good. And that's what I really think is the case here. I don't really blame Moreno. He's not known to be the best defender for a fullback. His strengths are going forward. I've actually been very impressed with how well he can defend. I wasn't expecting him to defend as well as he has up until now, actually, to be honest. And so I think we just chalk it down to that is an exceptional player that has tried a million times and one got through and it ended up with a goal. But to go to Stamford Bridge, only concede 1, play for 10 with 10 men for 25 minutes, still only concede 1. I don't really think we can blame the defence at all. And I think that will be miles better than just about every other Premier League team going to Stamford Bridge.
Just sticking with you right then, Raf. Any complaints about what James Ward-Prowse did for that second yellow? So obviously the first one was a clever kind of foul on Palmer when he was going through the middle, and we know he can cause danger in those moments. Second half, it was the grab of the ball to make sure Jackson can't get away. Any complaints from you that he did that?
First one, it just I really focused on the second one really, and the second one, it's caused by his error of losing his footing, to be honest, and
Sure.
so that's where the error comes from. And if he hadn't done that, then we would have been fine. But in the situation where it was, and there was a wiser person than me that has said, and that wise person is a certain Pete Blackburn, and has said, look, in that moment, you have a split second. You do not have a 360 downward view of the whole pitch in slow motion and lots of playbacks to know where everyone else is in the pitch. And so you've really got to go on instinct. And what I would say is that this season, weirdly, we find it easier to defend and keep a clean sheet than we do to score, which always hasn't been the case under Nuno when we were free scoring when he first came in. So actually, to take one for the team, keep a goal potentially from going in on our side and keeping it at 1-1, I actually think on balance with, not that we didn't know there'd be 13 minutes of added time, but, quite late in the game, I actually think probably was the right decision. But again, who knows? He's the professional footballer, not me. But Nuno didn't seem to be really that mad about it at all.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was frustrated that he did it because you know straight away he's going to be a red, and it's the second away game in a row that we've seen red. He's going to be missing now for the Crystal Palace match as well. So, but I see why he did it. So I don't have too many complaints, but it did put us down to 10 men, Jamie, and obviously Nuno then shuffled the pack. And let's talk about Nuno's substitutions and who he introduced and how he introduced them in order to see the game out. And also give us your view on this. It wasn't just about seeing the game out. It was actually, with 10 men, the ability to press was so remarkable. There were moments that we had Dominguez and Elanga, and in fact, I think it was later on in the game when Dominguez pressed and their centre-back went back to Sanchez, Elanga immediately moved off to the left to try and intercede the only pass Sanchez could make, and did get the block in. I think that's when he set Williams up, who was coming in as well, or something like that. But the ability to press with 10 men as well, and actually play in Chelsea's half. And obviously we went to a 5 and a 4-0. So we were looking to be quite defensive, but not just solidly go with that low block and never go beyond the halfway line. There was lots of good things in play. So take us through your view on the substitutions and how it affected the game and how it helped us see the game out.
I mean, I've not always been necessarily that I've never really praised Nuno all the time about his game management, because I do think that there's been many occasions where
Me neither.
It's been a place where he struggled, and you look at like Luton away last season was probably one of the big examples for me. Where I go,
Brighton away last season, and
Brighton away, and you look at it and you think you just didn't get it right there. But away from home this season, he's got it spot on in pretty much every aspect, I would say. And when I look at those substitutions, Nico came on, he had that kind of renewed sort of excitement to play, and obviously he got things a little bit fired up, which was quite funny and quite interesting. And then you've got Elanga coming on, you've got Jota Silva, Dominguez. They're fast players, so we are sitting quite deep, but it's not like we can't move forward very quickly. You've got, Elanga's one of the quickest players in the Premier League, I think only second to Mickey van der Ven this season. You've got Dominguez, someone who is fairly quick on the ball, and he's got a good technicality and can get the ball forward quick. Jota Silva, who goes without saying, I call him a bit of a Jack Russell of a player, and he's just battling for the ball all the time and wants to get into those dangerous areas, and he doesn't care how he does it. And for the Nico shot, he was just unlucky. I think that Robert Sanchez was having perhaps one of the games of his life, because that would have been a winner for me. And just again, how refreshing, I'll say refreshing again, because you're down to 10 men. And when the incident happened with Ward-Prowse, I sat back and I was so frustrated. I was on the commentary and I said, that's ridiculous what he's just done. But then you take in the wider context, and as Raf said, it was a misfooting, and that was his fault on his part. But mistakes do happen, and it's how you recover from that mistake. And he thought at that time, it's only me and him here. I've got to recover this mistake, so I'm going to take one for the team. And Nuno was right. He did take one for the team. And actually, it turned out and it worked out. I still don't think Nicholas Jackson would have scored, I was surprised that Nicholas Jackson was on the pitch for so long. But you don't want to take those sorts of chances in the Premier League. And so I respect James Ward-Prowse for that, absolutely. But the impact of the subs for me was really, really profound. I think that, you're taking off a few players that have had a lot of game time anyway, and you're replacing them with players who work really hard to get the ball back, who just want to win back possession for Forest, and again, have the pace and have the ability to get forward so quick. So even though we were playing in a 5-4-0, as you'd say, there was many times where you think actually Forest are going to go and get one back here, and get another goal. So I was just really impressed, and I thought again the game management was pretty much spot on, and the players when they came on, they put in a real good effort, and it was just really nice to see.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it was there for us all to see. So you've summed it up really, really well. And as viewers and listeners will know, I'm a huge fan of Nico Dominguez, and I'm a huge fan of Jota Silva. And in fact, deep into the game, it was Jota Silva that won the ball back in our half and got us up the pitch, won the free kick that Murillo tried to shoot from, but it wasn't a great effort. Got the corner, and it was from the corner the ball went back to Ola Aina, who demonstrated again just how useful it is that he is so two-footed, because he shifted it onto his left, the defender went with him, and as soon as he did, he shifted it back onto his right, their player slipped, and Aina's got a clear chance to sweep in an unblocked cross, which he did, and Jota Silva, Richard, rising there. I'm thinking, this is it. This is it. I was off my chair, was screaming, and Sanchez pulled off one of the saves of the season. That one from Williams was incredible. But as well as Sanchez, and talking about that moment, Rich, I'm coming to you for the goalkeepers. I'm coming to you for Matt Sells, because this has been an area that you and I have discussed on the podcast, off the podcast, in the middle of the night, in our dreams, in our nightmares, the ups and downs about goalkeeping situation. And I said, only I think in the last episode or two, that the criticism aimed at Matt Sells as what I have termed it to be over-egged. As in, come on, it's been a little bit too strong. He's had a couple of shaky moments, but he is a solid goalkeeper. And he's had the game of his life on Sunday. So kudos to Matt Sells. So what did you think about his performance, and what did you think about those Sanchez saves, Rich?
Yeah, I think naively, both you and I said before the season started that we thought we didn't need to go that route. We were more concerned about the striker position than we were about the goalkeeping position, which I think we still have some validation for that, right? Because without Chris Wood, we don't know what Big T is going to provide at this stage. But outside of that, he's such a dichotomous player, because he will show you in matches like that, and I think against Liverpool last season, that he looks like a number one. But then he'll have matches where he looks like a really good number two. And I think Raf's even made that comment about more often than not, he looks like a really good number two. What I'm liking about the way that he's playing, the saves were incredible. I mean, those two saves on consecutive saves on Cole Palmer, who had literally been neutralized for the vast majority of that match, other than obviously feeding a simple ball over to Madueke, who did all the work and then scored. For the most part, Cole Palmer didn't do anything. And I think we even kind of a hot take on our part in our last episode that this was going to be his worst game of the season, which his worst game, of the season compared to most footballers in general. I mean, that it's hard to compare, because he's still brilliant no matter what. But he really did get neutralized. Outside of that, I thought those two consecutive saves were phenomenal. That save on, and I'm forgetting who it was that got into the middle of the box and had looked like a free header. But Sells was.
Nkunku.
Yeah. Nkunku. Yeah. I mean, absolutely brilliant reactive save. So
and then there was a save from Gusto from the corner as well, following that over the bar.
Exactly.
So another save.
Exactly. It was just perpetual throughout that, towards the end of that second half and into stoppage or into injury time. So ultimately, I think he's shown us that we can still feel confident that he's going to provide us what we need in goal. And one of the things that I saw he did in this last match too was he seemed a little bit more aggressive as the ball was being crossed into the box. There was at least one play that I remember very specifically where he punched it out, right? And so we're seeing this sort of, it's weird when the guy's in his 30s and he's played a lot of matches to see sort of an evolution. And you got to wonder how much of that is, exactly. I mean, there seems to be this sort of decision. Oh, sorry. He was vocal at Chelsea, right, Bruce? I don't recall seeing him that vocal. I agree with you. I think that's the thing, is if he adds those elements to his game, he provides us, I think, a number one keeper type role. If he doesn't do those things, you're going to get these spectacular saves or these moments of mental lapses that want to drive you a little bit crazy. So it's good to see that progression. It's good to see that evolution of him, and I think that's hopefully coming from our manager, and that's being his background. So hopefully he's taking that advice and he's running with it, because he certainly looked like a number one last match.
And the Sanchez saves, Rich. I mean, I thought the one from Jota Silva was the save of the match. I mean, if we come away, absolutely, Richard, with those 3 points rather than just the 1 point and nicked it at the end, I mean, that would possibly have topped winning at Anfield, maybe, would it? I don't know. I mean, winning at Anfield was pretty incredible. But
I think based off of the context of Anfield, probably not. But based off of the performance,
10 men,
you might say that, because to be down 10 men, because really what happened was, it was kind of like we're a boxer who's lost his legs a little bit. We went back into the corner for a moment, then we came back out and we just started throwing punches, right? We didn't sit back, we didn't act passive, and it was phenomenal to see that kind of energy and that kind of passion, intensity come out. But you're right, that was clearly the moment and it was right at the end. I mean, it was literally one of the last things I think it was the last approach on goal that we had, other than a corner right after, which was pretty benign and didn't do anything. So to have that kind of ability right at the end, because Chelsea was not expecting that whatsoever. You could clearly see that. Plus, they had some players on the pitch that are probably exhausted as well at that point. That had been there for 90, over 100 minutes at that point. But you're right, Sanchez was incredible, because I think we came into that thinking he might be a liability just because of how he plays with the ball at his feet, and he tends to make some mistakes.
Well, there was a couple of moments that he did. Yeah, there was a couple of moments with his feet. He did give it away. But it's also interesting that had we scored that goal, I know we didn't, but had we scored it, it was another set piece move. And all of a sudden, these set piece moves are coming off. The ball's coming into Aina, as I suggested, switching it back and crossing it. Going to move on quite quickly off the game, but just very quickly, Jamie, there was an incident with the Williams Cucurella, who was always trying to put petrol on any fire he can be involved in. And then we saw, in the aftermath, Nicholas Jackson slapping the back of Morato's head, who Morato's a bit of a beast. So, he just kind of took a step back and looked at him to say, listen, mate, you're effing with the wrong guy here. So don't even think about it. Do you think there might be some comeback on Jackson briefly?
I don't think anything will happen. But again, that's the issue, I think, because there's not a consistency in the rules there, because he clearly smacked Morato. Whatever's happened before, whatever's been said, that can be dealt with separately. That's violent conduct. You smack a player, you should be getting a red, right? That should be the that should be the outcome of that. But obviously, that didn't happen at the time. Again, I don't know what will happen, but he should be absolutely suspended for that. And the actual incident, with Williams pushing Cucurella, I'm sure there was probably a bit of intention from Nico. Sure, whether he intended Cucurella to go and take out Maresca and for it to be an all-out brawl, I don't know. But it was just a crazy 5 minutes,
But it broke up the Chelsea kind of rhythm as well. We kind of came at the right time. And ultimately, I think Nico and Cucurella's legs kind of came together. And he never actually did a strong action to barge him out of the way. So, the yellow cards were given. And ultimately, I think, I agree with you. Jackson putting his hands up like that, something's got to be done.
Yeah.
Just quickly before I move on, thanks, Jamie. Quickly before I move on from the game, I want to quickly touch on Raf, your view on this guy. Nuno Espirito Santos coming to the club following Steve Cooper. Steve Cooper's relationship with the club, with the fans, was the best it's been probably since Clough days. And Nuno had a big act to follow. He had some ups and downs, and I want your view on his relationship with the fans now. For me, I feel like it hasn't been forced. I feel something's come naturally. They're singing his song with Nuno and all that kind of stuff, and it's growing each game. Can you see that yourself, and do you think that that's an important factor going forwards?
Greg, it's a really interesting one, actually, because I think Cooper had an easier time with it because our expectations were so low, and what he came in and did was miraculous. But also, he's an amazing person at PR and sound bites, so he puts a lot more out into the universe for fans to grab hold of and love him for. Whereas Nuno's much more quiet to himself type of individual. personally, I absolutely love Nuno as a human being. I think he is just such a lovely chap, and we're really lucky to have him as a manager and have that type of positive influence on our players. But that's why I think it needed to be more organic with the fans. And I think it's taken that time to get to where we are right now. And that is purely, it's like when you say as a player, isn't a vocal player, but they do their talking on the pitch through their actions. And I think that's the style that we're getting with Nuno. And I love the fact that he's got some bite and he's got some bark on the touchline. And he sticks up for his players, gets himself booked, and is sometimes a bit vocal against the authorities and everything else as well, but in a measured way. I think he's a superb manager. He's got the pedigree, and we're beginning to see it. As he said, we need a full pre-season under my management, and then let's see where we go to. And already, I'm really excited. I'll put my hand up. At the end of last season, I was like, if he went, I'm not going to cry about it, but I kind of want him to stay. But 6 out of 10, as it were. Now, 10 out of 10, Nuno's the person. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think all of the stands now feel that as well.
Really well summed up, Raf. I think I'm with you on how I felt about him as well. Go ahead.
Very, very quickly, there's one thing that Nuno has brought, just going back, and we saw it in the game. And what was levelled against the team last year was a naivety to the team and us not really closing out games and being very, very silly or not aware and naive in certain circumstances. And I think there was one thing which you've alluded to, which epitomizes. We know that Ryan Yates is the master at being able to control games, but it's not just him now. This is pervasively through the whole team. Dominguez does it. Anderson does it. Ward-Prowse seemed to do it. But gold star to Jota Silva, who seems to be absolutely amazing at it. And as I was driving back, it was the funniest quote. I managed to catch the last 20 minutes in the car on the way back, and on BBC Sport. And when Jota nicks the ball, was 5-on-1 and took the ball 30 yards into the Chelsea half and then bought a foul, basically, which was amazing. And the quote was something like, "That is phenomenal dark arts that are right there, straight out of the book of Slytherin." And I was just like, yes, that epitomizes what Nuno has instilled upon this whole team. Every single person has kind of got a bit of Yates DNA in them now, which is amazing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I can't actually believe we got to 43 minutes in, and actually we didn't mention Ryan Yates, because he is just doing what he's done, and he's been spoken about on other podcasts and other platforms in great detail. I've always been a huge Ryan Yates fan. I know that I'm one of those that have always loved him, and some people have having to eat a bit of humble pie now. And I know that most Forest fans don't mind eating humble pie when it's for the good of the team. And when it comes to Nuno, I'm eating humble pie because I was on his back last season, and at the end of the season, I also said, look, I'll be happy for him to go. But there was, on our contributor list, someone who has put himself forward as a bit of a Nuno fan, and someone, if only one of your regular contributors predicted Nuno would be the surprise of the season. Yes, Danscape, we know that you had positive things to say about Nuno. That won't go unnoticed. Okay,
and he said
right.
Nuno over Bolly as well.
I know. Can you believe it? Right, we're going to move on. Just quick enough time, or I can't get my words out, just enough time for me to play you the cheese video. So yes, if you're listening, you're going to get a little bit of music, so you don't get to see the nice delicacies on offer. If you're watching Danscape and Bruce, I know that this is your favourite moment. 12 in the afternoon. I think I might have to delve into the fridge and see what I can find. Those cheesy delights from the cheese trader in York could be yours, and 10% off as well every time you quote Talking Reds. So email, phone or Instagram. The details are in the bio to this episode. The card is on the screen for you now. Stu Freestone, Forest fan, support him if you can, and go and see that man for your cheesy delights. All right. Pre-season, we had a little think about how we might be doing after each game. So I'm going to share my screen. So we have just finished the second block of games, and we'll just go straight into the Liverpool game. Was the first one off the back of the international break, the last international break. We, of course, predicted that we would probably go to Anfield and get a defeat. Of course, as we all know, that was a game that we got 3 points in. We predicted the Brighton game would be a draw, and it was. We predicted that the Fulham game would be a win, but sadly, that was a defeat. And we predicted that the Chelsea game would be a draw. So we got, pretty accurately, we're in line. We predicted ourselves to be, after the Chelsea game, on 12 points. So that's with all the games played so far this season. We're currently on 10, so we're slightly behind where we predicted, Richard. But all in all, following the last 4 games, I mean, we've got to be pretty happy, haven't we, with those 4 games: Liverpool, Brighton, Fulham and Chelsea?
Absolutely. You go into the second international break and you're 10th in the Premier League, if I'm not mistaken. And then we've got, beyond just the points too, it's the way that we're playing match after match, as you alluded to earlier, that the reduction in set piece goals. I mean, they're being the best in the Premier League at that. So you're absolutely correct. I think in totality, we've got to be very, very pleased with what we're doing. And you mentioned the manager. I mean, from him all the way through the entirety of the team, we've just got to be incredibly pleased with our overall performance. Clearly, the Fulham one, I think, is one that stings a bit. The opportunities that we had against Bournemouth, against Wolves, even taking the lead and it kind of leading towards the end of the match, in the Bournemouth match specifically, where we gave up another late goal. That's a little bit disappointing, but overall, you can't be disappointed in what we're doing. And I think there's only better things to come as we continue to progress as a team, as we continue to build what we've got, as far as just the base of what we're doing right now is so promising.
Jamie, how are you feeling about the season, how it started? I mean, last season, after 14 games, we had 9 points. So 14 games of last season, and we were on 9 points. This time round, 7 games, already on 10, as Richard says, in 10th place, top half of the table, above the likes of Man United, who are having a stinker again. So sum up your thoughts on where we're at and how these 7 games have gone for Forest.
I mean, yeah, I'm obviously very happy because you're 7 games in, as you say, you got 10 points, which is, I remember at one point, I think it was the first season we played Palace before the Christmas break for the World Cup. And we just got past 11 points and we were kind of celebrating
0-0.
that. Yeah. And we got past that kind of or got onto the 11-point mark, and we were going, yeah, that's fantastic. That's before Christmas. We're in October now and we've got 10 points. So the progress is clear. It's right in front of you. The evidence is there. But obviously there is also the critical part where you look at that Bournemouth home game, and obviously the Wolves draw was predicted, but even in that game, I still think we should have done more. The Bournemouth game, we should have done more. And Fulham, definitely we should have done more. And the only, the constant in all of those 3 things I've just mentioned, it is the home form. So I am definitely happy, and I'm not taking anything for granted, and I'm not going to be greedy. But the home form is something that I think we've struggled with so far, and we have done actually for quite some time now, since that Fulham win at home last season. So I'm definitely happy. 10 points is great. But the home form does have to improve, I think, in order to see a much more gradual progress over the course of the season.
It definitely could have. I mean, there's all the shoulda, coulda, wouldas come into play with hindsight. But the Bournemouth game could have won that. The Wolves game that we were at, it was a thunderblast of an equaliser that got them the point. So, things happen in games. But in terms of looking forwards, Raf, next 4 matches coming up after the international break, 3 are at home, 1's away. So Palace at home, then Leicester away. And that's a Monday night Palace at home and a Friday night Leicester away. So just a very quick turnaround. followed by West Ham at home, and then Newcastle at home before we go into the November international break. So another block of 4 games, which I'll be honest with you, I know that international football and the breaks can be a problem for some people. I'm not too worried about them. I kind of feel like the way we're playing at the moment, in blocks of 4, we're taking it as they come and able to kind of analyze those games as a group, if you will. So the next 4, 3 are at home. I mean, that home form has been a worry, hasn't it, Raf?
It has, but I think if we think logically about how we play, we like being quite tight at the back and breaking. So we actually fit going away from home more. And it's been a kind of Forest way that we don't really have the majority of possession in games. So I think this is just a puzzle that we're trying to solve at home of how do we do this if we have the majority of possession. We actually didn't against Fulham have the majority of possession either. So it is a tough nut to crack, and I think we'll find out about really the direction of travel of this season through those 3 home games and how we fare from them. My own personal view is at home, I absolutely laud Nuno's tactical nous away from home. It's been brilliant how we figured out the opposition, nullified them, and then taken it to them. I don't really want us to be doing that at home. I just want us to play our 4-2-3-1, put our best players on the pitch and absolutely just go for it and try and outscore them, which was the kind of old Nuno way when he came in last season. And we should be doing that more at home as far as I'm seeing. But we'll see. We'll see how they're all 3 very winnable games. If we look at the reverse fixtures of them, though, that's what we did last season. So there's a bit of form we need to really match what we did last season against these teams.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not too worried about the home form. I know that for me, the Fulham defeat was an odd one because it literally was a very controversial penalty. And on another day, it's not given. And on another day, we get one at the other end. And so it wasn't like we were getting bombarded and getting outplayed. It was just a bad day at the office all round. And the Bournemouth and Wolves games that we drew in, you know, start of the season, bit of rust maybe coming into the start. But we're starting to kind of find our groove a little bit. And I think 3 games at home now gives us a real chance to correct our home form. And as Paul rightly points out in the comments, 3 wins in 20 at home in all competitions since the 2-0 against Villa last season. I mean, that's a worry. And obviously there's the Bristol penalty in there, which was a win, if you like, but it was a penalty on penalties win. Just want to quickly say hello to Alex as well, who I think is a Chelsea fan. Looks like he's saying he was worried about our trip to the Bridge because Chelsea have only beaten us once since we came up, and that's true. That was at the City Ground last season. We've had good results at Stamford Bridge, and talking about struggling to break down our low block. Yeah, I think that's fair play to Nuno and Ward-Prowse. And I think we offered more than just a low block as well. I think that going forwards in terms of points on the board, we've looked at, well, it's there for you on screen. We've predicted 4 draws. Draw against Palace, draw against Leicester, draw against West Ham, draw against Newcastle. Richard, I mean, if we were to take 4 points, that'd be quite disappointing, wouldn't it?
I think at this point too, especially with Palace's current form and then Leicester. I mean, Leicester obviously won their first match over the weekend, and that's obviously an away match as well. But given how our away form has been, I think that's definitely a game we should probably take 3 points from. I completely agree with you. I think at this stage we should be looking more at 6-7 points to try to within that stretch versus what we've got predicted here. We'll see how it all plays out, but I definitely agree with you. I think we've got matches in that grouping that we should absolutely take. I think Palace and Leicester at the top of those.
What about you, Jamie? What kind of points total would you really think Forest should be achieving from those next 4 games?
It's tough because as much as Leicester aren't doing too great, there's this sort of pessimistic view in my mind that we're playing against Cooper and it's just going to be one of those games where it does end up a draw. As much as I think that we've got the quality, the tactical ability to go and win that game, and maybe we will, I just see it being one of those games that I think it'll be a draw. Honestly, I do think we could beat Palace. So I think there's 4 points from those 2 games there. West Ham, I'm not sure. They're a bit of a funny one, West Ham. I think a draw would probably be a good result still, because I know that I don't think Lopetegui in particular is the right choice of manager for West Ham, and that's quite a weird thing to say on a Forest podcast. But I still think they're a very good side, and they've got a lot of talent there. So yeah, a draw, and then Newcastle. I'd say I agree. So I think the only result I change based on what you've predicted there is Crystal Palace. I do think we can get a win against them, because you've taken Elise out that side, and now they all know that Eze is the man with the talent that they're going to try and push on for, and they've kind of they've found out what Palace are trying to do. So I think get 3 points from Palace, and then the rest draws.
Yeah, and these predictions were done before we even kicked off the season. So that was obviously based around the way that Palace finished last season, but readjusting our thoughts, Raf, towards what we know now in terms of how we're playing and how the opposition are playing. I think Jamie's right, really, to try and maybe adjust us to home to Palace with 3 points. I mean, I still think Forest at home to West Ham should be 3 points as well. Just before we move on, Raf, where are you with the points total over these next few games?
It's all about Ole Aina versus Eze, I think, probably for the Palace game. If Aina has a good game, we win. The Leicester game, I get Jamie's just this niggling thing in my head, and I'm just going to write that off as probably a draw, just as long as we don't lose it. Oh my gosh, just imagine. And the other two, have West Ham in their last game suddenly sparked into life with their 4 goals? I don't know. And that's what we'll find out in their next 2 games to see if that was a blip, or is this actually the West Ham that I predicted was going to be a bit of a dark horse for pushing for like 5th, 6th or something in the league. So I don't really know. So I reckon I'd be happy with, if we get 6 points out of that, we're still stable and moving forward, I think, probably.
Yeah, I think ultimately a lot will be revealed in those 2 games before we play West Ham, and how much of a corner they have or haven't turned under Lopetegui. But certainly enough, their start hasn't been great, although they're not that far below us in the table. I think results have kind of come together a little bit in a few draws, so they're not too far off it. Wolves seem obviously to be the ones that are getting anchored at the bottom. But look, over the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll find out more about Gibbs-White and how he's progressing. If he doesn't make the first team and only makes the bench, then again, we've stressed it time and time again, our strength in depth is there to cope. And hopefully, from my point of view, we'll see Jota Silva get a start. The women's team are also playing on Sunday. They were at home at the City Ground, and they got off to another fantastic thrashing with an 8-0 win against Halifax FC. We talked about Halifax being second bottom of the table and a minus 25 goal difference, and obviously our ladies being top of the table and scoring for fun. So it was another one of those games where goals were being distributed around the team, with Olding, Howe, Wellings, Sophie Domingo getting 2, Chandarana and Galloway plus an own goal. The women's team are flying, and their matches at the City Ground this season will hopefully see the crowds grow as well. Okay, we're going into the final minutes of today's episode. What I've been doing recently is talking about the shirts that we wear. So today I am sporting the away shirt from the 2007 to 2008 and also the 2008 to 2009 season. These were the days when, shirts lasted more than a season. And so there's still a few that I need to collect, and Richard is trying to catch me up. Richard, today I'm going to scroll up. You're wearing one from a more recent period with the blue away shirt from 2020 to 21. So I know you've got your eye on that camo shirt as well. So join in the comments with your favourite shirts and what you like to see the club or the team wear, what colours you prefer to wear. Raf, you look like you've got an Umbro home shirt on going back a few seasons. I can't quite see it because oh, there we go. So I have to scroll down to Umbro. And it was the badge in the middle, isn't it? So we're going all the way back down. I think I might have even missed it. So doing
Okay,
this
found
live,
there.
you see,
There
guys,
you
those
go.
listening, trying to scroll down
There
and
you go.
find the home shirts. There it is. There it is. 1998 to
There.
99 and 99 to 2000. The red home shirt, pinnacle sponsor, the badge in the middle. One I
Showing my
haven't
age.
got, actually. That's one I haven't got. Well, you and me both, brother. I mean, you and me both. So yeah, you know, you know that we love a shirt at Talking Reds. Also, as well, we love a bit of fantasy football, and so here is the latest league table. Let's pull that down again. Let me try and find it for you before I put it up. So Orlando, my son, was feeling a little bit disappointed because he had managed to get himself up to third in the league, but he's now dropped down, I think, to seventh. He still did not too bad, but top of the table still, Locomotive Forest, managed by Danny Robinson. Paul Morley has gone back up into second place. So well done, Paul, and friend of Talking Reds and host of Forest Focus, Matt Davis, with Megson Ball, has now gone into third place in the table. A big fall from Matt Druitt from second place down to sixth. So Matt Druitt, the Fulham fan, the architect, has seen himself fall down as well. And then other contributors on our panel, Dan Cook coming back up again, Dan Skate with Bolly up to 14th place as well. Raf kind of holding a position at 20th. So you're not doing too bad there, mate. I'm having an absolute nightmare still. I mean, I've gone down to 38th now. I mean, I'm just appalling. And then where have you gone, Richard? Have you gone above me? Oh no, you're just
41.
below me. Rich is in 40,
Where
41.
am I at?
So the Talking
appalling.
Reds hosts are bringing up the rear and doing an appalling job on FPL. Thank you very much to everybody for playing along and being in our league. We really appreciate your interest and we really appreciate you getting involved. I posed a question at the start and I asked you, who is Forest's youngest ever player? And the answer is, anybody want to share it with us? Does anybody know? Richard, Raf, Jamie? It was Craig Westcar, age 16, against Burnley on October 13th, 2001. So we are at the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give the guys a chance on the floor to say a few things before they go. Raf, I think you wanted to take us through something. Over to you.
Yeah, very quickly. It's one of the things I feel very passionate about and is about misinformation on X or Twitter or whatever you call it, especially when it comes to complex rulings. And so something that really blew up in the press was all about these associated party transactions. And it was Man City against the Premier League and it went to a panel. This isn't the 105 charges, but it does influence a little bit of it. Man City came out saying they'd won. Premier League came out saying they'd won. And there's lots of misinformation. So I just wanted to very quickly tell you what had happened in lay terms so that you can really understand it for anyone that's interested. Effectively, associated party transactions in the main are all about revenue that a club gets in through sponsorship is the main thing. So if you think about the front of shirt sponsor, how much? And if you've got an owner or shareholders that own other companies, so if we think about Fawaz Refrigeration that ended up on the front of our shirts, it was very much about how much revenue can the club pay or get for the sponsorship. And what Man City were trying to do effectively was inflate and say, right, we'll give you this for the sponsorship. And is that really a fair market price? Now, Man City did win three things, but they're not big and not what they really wanted for. The first thing was the fact that they did win that when they're trying to price how much they can charge for these sponsorships, the Premier League are not sharing a database of information. So it's all about benchmarking. And so the Premier League have been told to share more information. Premier League say, well, quite a lot of it is secret, so we can't, but we will whenever we can. The second is just about timing, and the Premier League didn't, in their own procedures, give a ruling on if something's allowable or not back to Man City on time. And so the Premier League basically need to have better timekeeping. The first two does mean the Man City can potentially sue the Premier League a little bit, but that is not actually going to affect all the other clubs. The third thing is the key thing here, and that is about interest-free loans that an owner or shareholders put into a club. At the moment, they're not are really under this associated party transaction rule. And what Man City said was, well, hang on, this is a bit unfair if you're limiting how much revenue we can put in, because this is actually a chunky cost that is not being charged at market rates because people are getting free loans when actually the club should be paying 5%, 6%, 10% on those loans from the owners. The panel of basically lawyers decreed the fact that it's actually unlawful for that to be determined not relevant, as it were. And so what is now happening is that the clubs now have been told that they need to vote, but with the basis that it's unlawful, to be able to now include these loans into associated party transactions. So what does this mean? So this means like the likes of Arsenal, it means the likes of Brighton, it means the likes of Everton, which all have huge loans that have come from their owners. Definitely Brighton, definitely Everton are zero interest. And so they will have to now recalculate those. That will have a material impact on their PSR calculations. But there's a limited scope because we're going to be moving to just a squad cost ratio. So there's only a small impact for a small amount of time, and then this will go away. But the Premier League won, basically, because associated party transactions are not going away. They are staying, they're not being removed. So we cannot see Marinakis suddenly put a front of shirt sponsor and pump £200 million into the club because he can price things in any way that he wants. And that, in a nutshell, is what it was all about.
Well, thank you for that, mate. I know you've got a really good expert eye on that. So obviously we'll keep an eye on what's going on with Man City and those court things with the Premier League, and they've got their 115 charges that are all going to come to the fore as well. So thanks for that, buddy. I appreciate you joining us today. Richard's had to hop off because in Oklahoma it's a school run time, so he's got to go and get that sorted. So Richard's left us, but Jamie, it was great to have you back with us on Talking Reds today. And you've been a busy boy. You know, you announced on X recently that you're putting everything into one basket and you're heading off to Australia next year. But you've been doing a few other things as well. So just give us a quick breakdown of what you've been up to and what the future holds for you in the immediate sort of 12 months or so.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know my life outside of doing this, so it's always interesting when someone asks me the question, "What do you do outside of it?" And I do landscape gardening. I'm a waiter in my family business, and I sometimes do the occasional bit of labouring in another family business as well. So I've been working 2 or 3 jobs outside of doing this. Some days it's morning till night, just going for it and saving money to go to Australia because I'm in a position where I feel like everything I do, I can carry along with me because we're in such a great world where everything's online. And you can pretty much do everything that you need to do if you're in a sort of position like I am with the internet, and you can do it from anywhere in the world. So I thought, well, I'm still young. I don't want to live with any regrets. I've had a couple of personal challenges over the year, and it's all pushed me towards doing Australia. I was in the garden actually doing some work. I was doing one of my courses, and it came up as an advert on YouTube on a video I was watching, and I thought, yeah, I'm doing it. And from that moment, I was just completely sold. So I've raised and saved a lot of money, and I'm going in June. So you've still got to deal with me until then, mate. I'm sorry, but I'll be here until June, and then I'm looking to just have a bit of time out, but also maybe continue my work in Australia and see something a bit different. And hopefully not too many spiders though, because I'm not a big fan. But if they're there, they'll do. But I'm not a big fan.
Sounds fantastic. I think on a journey to Australia to go out and see the wild world. I couldn't be more envious of you. I wish I was your age again to go and do all that. We're delighted to have you around till June. We'll have you back on the pod for some more previews and reviews if you're around. But for today, Jamie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Raf, thank you very much indeed for your hard work as well.
Thanks for having me as always, mate.
And for those watching and commenting and listening, we wouldn't be anything without your input and your kind words and your support. thank you very much for being involved. My video's been a bit glitchy today. I think the sound's been okay. So hopefully it's been a seamless episode. We'll be back soon on Saturday coming up. We're going to be doing the one with Daw on tour. Ben Daw is coming on to Talking Reds. We're going to be asking him some hard questions as well as some easy ones. So that'll be coming your way this Saturday. In the meantime, thank you very much for tuning in to Talking Reds, and we'll see you next time.